Hi everyone, it's great to see you. Last year I worked in our front yard on the semicircle area that is next to our driveway, and I took out the grass that was there and planned to make it somewhat of a Japanese garden with some Japanese maples and some dwarf conifers. It was looking really good, but I noticed that I was having a terrible time digging things in. We discovered that about 6 to 8 inches down, someone had put these plastic pavers in for this entire area. Now, from what I've heard, these are sometimes used for drainage. I'm not really sure how that would work, but boy, you really couldn't plant anything. I was worried the plants that I did plant wouldn't have the ability to spread their roots like they should. So this year we decided we would dig the plants back up that I had planted and we would remove these plastic pavers. Initially, we thought we could do this by hand, but it was taking hours. It was not easy work because there were roots in there too. Oh my goodness. So we decided we would need to bring in some additional help. Landscape contractors A.P. Theo Landscaping in Seekonk, Mass. came recommended to me. I had never worked with them before. However, they were fabulous on this project. And with a team of 3, they used a little excavator to dig out all those pavers and to sift through the soil, removing both the pavers and any roots, and really did a nice job. And this was a big job to do. As they made sure that the topsoil was going to be workable and plantable for me, they also leveled everything out before they left. And by the end of the day, I had a great new area that I felt much more comfortable planting in. I'll link their information down below in case you happen to be local. But a nice job, great cleanup job, and a real big help for this project. Now, this past year, I was really inspired by a couple Facebook posts that I saw from Sonny Magnusson, who is in Sweden, and he had posted on the Mr. Maples Friends Facebook group pictures of his garden. And this garden took these dwarf conifers, these Japanese maples, and just was amazing. And he said he had had this area, he'd been gardening for 25 years, and if something got too big, he was comfortable moving it to another area. And that was a real turning point for me because it made me think, okay, I want to make this garden look how I want it to now and be comfortable adjusting things later on. I know that sizes of your conifers and your Japanese maples can be difficult to gauge as you are planting. So I decided I would do the best I could. And I also collected some more conifers that he had put in his garden successfully that I just really loved in these 2 photos. Now I had been looking at this area ready to plant, and the more I looked at it, I realized it really was a very flat, uninteresting area, and I knew I could make it a lot more interesting, but I had always wanted to have a very large rock in a garden and thought, wouldn't this be a great place to do that? So I contacted the landscapers that I had worked with before, A.P. Lateo and Sons, and they were able to deliver 2 large boulders. And I was really lucky because I wasn't home when they did this, but I had put a couple orange cones where I wanted them to place the stones, and they did such a nice job. They faced the rocks just like I would have wanted, with certain sides showing. It just was very artistically done. And then I knew I was ready for all those little plants that I have grouped in the center here in their pots to start laying them out and deciding where they would go. Once I had my plants laid out, and some of them at least dug in, I did have our irrigation people come back out, and they reworked the irrigation so that I had drip lines going that I could individually turn on and off. So I actually have one drip line that will be dedicated to planting annual flowers in here, which I can leave on and give a lot more water to, and a separate drip line for those Japanese maples and conifers that might want less water. So I think that's going to really help me. And you're also going to see I decided to leave some of the plants in pots because honestly, I'm not sure if this is the best place for them yet. I want to have the flexibility to move them around. It also allows me to alter the height a little bit within this garden. We then put mulch over everything and it is looking really, really good. One of the first things that was transferred into this garden were the hellebores that I had planted in the front urns. So here we have Wedding Party Maid of Honor, and then I have, let's see, this is Pippa's purple, I believe, and Anna's red. Two really beautiful hellebores that did fabulous in planters and now will come back year to year. And this is a great place for them because under an overarching canopy of our oak tree here, they will be able to bloom early on. They're getting more sunlight before those trees leaf out, and then they'll get that nice shade that they like once the trees are in full leaf. Here is Tiny Curls. Tiny Curls is a dwarf curly white pine, and as a dwarf in about 10 years, it's supposed to get about 3 feet tall by 2.5 feet wide. So all of the plants that I'm highlighting here, these conifers and Japanese maple, I'm giving you the 10-year growth average. And of course, yes, they do get bigger than that in year 11 and 12 and so on. But keeping in mind that I'm going to be flexible in moving them around, I think that will be fine. Now, Tiny Curls is hardy zones 3 to 8. So I'm comfortable leaving this in the container. This is a grow bag, and maybe putting in a pot in the future. Thunderhead is a Japanese black pine that is hardy zones 5 to 10 and gets to be about 6 feet tall by 4 feet wide. Now, I am keeping this one in the grow bag because it probably will need to be repotted up and moved. However, it is comfortable full sun to partial shade. So I put this back a little further where it's going to be in partial shade. We'll see how it does for that. This is also one of the conifers that I put in my Christmas planters and the urns that were in the front last year. And that worked really well. So I'm hoping that in the winter months I can move this so it has a more prominent place in the garden. This adorable Japanese maple is Tattoo. It is hardy zones 5 to 9 and gets to be about 2 feet tall by 2 to 3 feet wide. I love the way the leaves layer and this just adorable little tiny maple. It is one of my favorites. Here we have the Snow White Lawson Cypress. You can see that to the back left of it, we have a lemon cypress tree, and here we have the Snow White Lawson cypress. And you know, this really likes full sun, so we'll have to see how it does. It is hardy zones 4 to 8 and it gets to be about 4 feet tall, very narrow though, 2 feet wide in that 10 years. So we shall see. I did put the drip line right up to these because I did know that they would want water. Smitty Eyei is one of the smallest Bosnian pines that you can get. It's hardy to zones 4 to 7, and it's only going to get 1 to 1.5 feet tall and wide, so it really is tiny. I have it toward the front of the garden here, and it is looking adorable. Here we have Sherwood Compact, a dwarf mountain pine. This is hardy down to really cold zones 2 to 7, and it's still pretty small. It's going to get 2 to 3 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet wide. So this nice little sort of globe-shaped conifer, just adorable with that blue color. And here is my second try at growing sea urchin, which is a white pine. Sea urchin is hardy down to zone 3 up to zone 8 and gets to be about 2 to 3 feet tall. It looks like this little prickly sea urchin and is absolutely so cute. Ruby Teardrops is a dwarf blue spruce, hardy zones 3 to 7, and it gets to be 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. And one of the reasons that I chose this particular blue spruce is because the new growth, the pine cones, when they're newly growing, look like a beautiful ruby purple color. I purchased this conifer at a local nursery and it did not have a tag on it, so I don't know what kind it is. It's a pretty good size though. I love the globe shape and it gives me a conifer here that is a little more mature than the others, so I think it was a good idea to transfer it from its pot into the ground. A 10 is that beautiful chartreuse conical conifer that you saw in my photo that I posted, not my photo, but my inspiration photo that was right there in the forefront. And so I ended up getting this dwarf Serbian spruce myself. Now it will get more conical as it gets older. In 10 years, it'll get about 3 feet by 4 feet, and it's hardy down to zone 3, zones 3 to 9. And here at the very back of this gardening area is a dwarf weeping hemlock. Now these can get a decent size. In 10 years, we're talking 5 to 6 feet by 6 to 8 feet. It's a nice backdrop plant here. So we'll have to see whether this one ends up staying in this place or not. I am a little worried whether it'll get enough sunlight, but I'll be keeping a close eye. It is hardy down to zone 4 to 8, and getting that 5 to 6 feet tall, 6 to 8 feet wide. Ollendorffi is a dwarf Norway spruce, and although it starts out rather round like this, it does get more conical as it grows. It's hardy down to zone 2 to 8, and in about 10 years' time will be about 3 feet by 3 feet. I really love this dwarf Japanese red pine. It is called Low Glow because it gets this chartreuse new growth in the spring, which you can see in these pictures a little bit. In 10 years, it's going to get 1 to 2 feet tall and wide, and it's hardy zones 4 to 7. In this garden area, I have 2 green penguins, a dwarf Scots pine. They're hardy zones 3 to 8 and get to be about 4 feet tall by 2 feet wide in a penguin shape. Now the reason I have 2 is because the first one I thought I had killed. I overwatered it, but it made it through. It's doing fine now, but in the meantime I wanted green penguin enough. I had ordered another. You can never have too many green penguins. I have 2 green elf Japanese black pines in this area, and these get fairly large, so I realize that these will outgrow where they are living, but that is okay. I'm happy to move them in the future. One of the 2 did not get enough water over the winter, so I'm not sure if it will make it or not. We will have to see, but I will be doing my best to keep them alive. Daisy's White is a white spruce, hardy down to zone 2 and up to zone 8, and it stays fairly small, getting 2 to 3 feet tall and only a foot wide in the 10 years. I think this is an adorable little spruce. And here is Coral Magic, a pink Japanese maple, and oh my goodness, it has this bright pinky orange color in the spring that it has just leafed out with, and now it has turned its summer green, but spectacular. It is hardy zones 5 to 9 and eventually will get to be about 6 by 6. Catherine Elizabeth is a Japanese white pine, hardy zones 5 to 7. It gets to be about 2 feet tall by 3 feet wide. Blue Pearl is a miniature blue spruce, and as it is a miniature, it will only get to be about 1 foot by 1 foot in 10 years, and this one is up on a standard. It is really beautiful, hardy zones 3 to 7. Builtmore Blue is a white pine. It is hardy zones 3 to 8 and gets to be about 3 to 4 feet by 3 to 4 feet after 10 years. Look at the candles on this. It is doing so well. And I'm keeping it in a grow bag so that I can use it as part of my Christmas pot display. Kawahime is a dwarf coral bark getting 6 to 8 feet in about 10 years. There's a little bit of the red left on the bark here. It really looked beautiful this winter and just is such a great winter interest piece. Planted in the center of this garden is a Jordan full moon maple. This is a golden full moon in that it is one of the most yellow full moon that there are. So you can see here in the spring when it leaves out, it was even more chartreuse, just beautiful. And I think it will really steal the show and be that centerpiece that I'm looking for. Theo is another dwarf Japanese maple. It has green leaves that can have a purple or red border. I haven't really seen much of the border yet, but it has really, really tiny leaves. It is adorable. It gets to be 5 to 4 feet wide and is hardy zones 5 to 9. This is my second year with Lilias Jewel. It is an amazing variegated pink with red, and you really see both the pink and the red with this particular tree. It can get to be 10 to 12 feet tall. For now, I'm keeping it in a pot. Also in a pot is year 2 of Wildfire. Wildfire is hardy zone 6 to 9, and it is also staying in a pot. Seems to be very happy there, and I loved its bark this winter. I have also tucked in some hydrangeas in this bed. So this is the second or third year with my Cape Cod hydrangea. I have a couple wee bit giddies that are small. This one didn't do great, but it's coming back. And then wee bit innocent is a new hydrangea for me this year. Also on the very small side, that will do well in this dwarf garden. I've also added a number of the coleus that I grew from seed in between all of these conifers and Japanese maples, sort of to fill in, to add a little extra brightness. And I've tried to make sure that I have really worked in the different blue colors, the greens, the chartreuse, so that we have a smattering of color all across the garden. Now I'll be adding some New Guinea impatiens here, or some sun patience in the future, and I just think I'm going to learn so much from growing all these plants. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.